Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is Councilmember Schultz going to be present this evening? Okay. If the clerk would note.
She will be arriving late. I just get a note.
Oh, okay. So the clerk can, when she arrives, can make the notation. Yes, thank you. So tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. Members of the public may attend in person and also online, and you can watch our meeting on burnsvillemn.gov/meetings or Comcast channel 16 or 859. The public also can participate through Zoom by joining us on zoom.us/join. More information is available on our meeting webpage and in the council agenda packet. The next item on our agenda is announcements, and our announcements have to do with all of our upcoming meetings. Regular council meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, July 2nd, and that meeting is canceled. And the next council meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 16th at 5:30 p.m. We have a work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, July 9th at 5:30 p.m. and a budget work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, July 9th at 6:30 p.m. So tonight we have one proclamation, and we also have a update from Executive Director at the library, Mr. Chad Lubers, and he will do that after I do the proclamation for Women of Today. Members of the council and the community, we have a proclamation this evening for Women of Today, and it is Founders Day. Whereas the Minnesota Women of Today and the Burnsville Women of Today chapter have set aside July 1st to recognize the many community activities of the dedicated women of today across the state. And whereas the Minnesota Women of Today is an organization of over 920 members in 47 communities, and the Minnesota Women of Today and the Burnsville Women of Today chapter are dedicated to actively promoting such public awareness and service programs as Teen Reach, 360 Communities, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, and March of Dimes, as well as local scholarships, food shelves, and shelters. And whereas the Minnesota Women of Today provide personal enrichment and leadership training for members of all ages. And whereas the Women of Today believe through us great lessons can be learned, worthy deeds performed, and a hand of fellowship extended to millions of women everywhere. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Elizabeth Couts, Mayor of the City of Burnsville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim July 1st, 2024 as Minnesota of Today Founders Day in the City of Burnsville, proclaimed this 18th day of June, 2024. And I'd like to recognize that Mrs. Doreen Perkins Mon is the president of Women of Today, and with her is Pat Larson and Dolly Kinney from Women of Today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for everything that you do for our community. Wonderful. I think we'll take a picture right there so that the council can also be part of it.
Okay.
Okay, and then if the other two members of Women of Today can come.
Madam Mayor, I would add that the women of today also are volunteers for the Burnsville Festival and Fire Muster. We really appreciate your commitment.
And I will add, my wife was a woman of today.
Privileged to be awarded some of their
For best friends,
awards,
come from
so,
there.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thank you. And now, members of the council and members of the community, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Chad Lubers, and he's been here before. He's the executive director of our library, and he's going to give us an update. And Mr. Luber, thank you so much for always being such a great partner, being present at all of our events, and really raising the awareness to our children and our community about books and the joy of reading. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Chad Lubers, and I am the library manager of the Dakota County Burnhaven Library. As I've done in previous years, I wanted to stop by this evening just to give you a brief update of what's been going on at the library over the past year or so, and maybe talk a bit about where the library is heading in the near future. So general statistics about how we measure use at the library. We had just over 200,000 visits this past year, and 500,000 items were borrowed from the library. The items borrowed has surpassed our 2019 pre-pandemic levels. We are still not quite back to pre-pandemic, though, with our visits. With a population of about 64,000 residents, Burnsville on average visits the library individually 3 times a year and checks out 8 books. So for those of you that I haven't seen in a while, I expect you to work to get those quotas up, all right? The Dakota County Library System had 9 libraries for the majority of 2023. We have added a 10th library. All of those libraries had a combined total of 34,000 residents from Dakota County who attended classes or events at the library or virtually through the library's website. 4 items in particular to draw your attention to this evening. The library last year in 2023 went fine-free for everybody. So all of those nickel, dime, and quarter fees that we all remember having as children, those are all gone now. One of the questions we get asked frequently, though, is now that you've eliminated the fees, why should I bring my books back? Well, we didn't eliminate all of our fees. We have it set now that if you don't return your items after 6 weeks, we are charging you the cover price of whatever it is you borrowed. So you don't get a completely clean slate with us waiving off those little nickel dime fees, but it seems to be working out very well so far, and people are genuinely happy that they're not paying these tiny little fees on a regular basis. I mentioned that we opened a 10th library this past year in Dakota County. That is our Kaposia Library. The city of St. Paul recently transitioned coordination and operation of library services from the city over to the county. The city of St. Paul has had a library for a very, very long time. The Kaposia Library, which is brand new, was named after a Mdewakan Sioux gathering place along the Mississippi River. And they have had really tremendous attendance numbers so far. They are really close to the high school over in South St. Paul, so they have kind of this regular stream of high school students stopping by the library to use services. Dakota County Library added an engagement van, which was named Van Go. The dad part of me that loves a good pun is still tickled even just looking at the name right now. I love Van Go. We actually sent our engagement team here to the city of Burnsville to talk with Amber Jacobson and some of your staff about how engagement services worked in Burnsville, and a lot of the interior features that you will see and you would see inside our Van Go vehicle are going to look very similar to what you would see in the vehicle that I think is called Eva here in Burnsville. So we really appreciate the city being willing to share their expertise and insight on that front, because it really helped inform what direction we took the library in. Now, the 4th item is actually, for my money, the biggest change that we've implemented at the library here in Burnsville this past year. We launched a new business service model called Self-Service Hours, where we have made the library open and accessible to the public from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., Monday through Sunday, year-round, even on holidays. There's a registration process that residents have to go through in order to qualify for the service. You have to have a library card, you have to have an account that's in good standing. After we go through a small background check, you are approved, you receive a new library card that you can use to scan into the building anytime between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. To date, we are averaging probably about 15 people a day coming into the library either before we open or after we close. Most popular day of the week and time of the week, believe it or not, is Friday night. And that is apparently because we have a lot of groups and organizations that are trying to get something in before the weekend arrives. In particular, we have a huge number of Girl Scouts and dance troops that use the library's meeting space. So if you happen to be there after hours, don't be surprised if you hear music or a lot of giggling going on. One of the questions we get about self-service hours is, have there been any hiccups or any problems? The biggest issue we've had is occasionally people will forget that they left something in their car. So they'll run outside and then realize that they left their access card in the library, and then they are locked out of the facility until somebody can either come back to give them admission, or if they call 911, the police will come and open the building so they can get back in. That has happened once so far. But we've had a couple of students who have come to the library to study who have just accidentally locked themselves out and had to wait until the following morning, unfortunately, to get their materials that they had left behind. But all told, it's been a really popular service. I want to say that we have between 600 and 700 residents in Burnsville who have signed up for this so far. And I think all of the libraries in Dakota County are now offering this with the exception of the library, I think, in Apple Valley and possibly Eagan. I can't remember. I think Eagan may actually be live now, but I know Apple Valley hasn't launched yet. All right, two specific items that I just wanted to draw your attention to today. In March of 1974, the library in its current location opened up. The Dakota County Library actually had a presence here, or the Burnsville Library had a presence here previous to this. We were actually right down the road here on Nicollet, at the corner of Nicollet and McAndrews. I believe that the storefront that used to house the library is now a Somali restaurant. But in 1974, we moved to our current location. There's been a couple of renovations since that time, but we officially turned 50 this year. And even though we didn't throw a party for the public, the staff had a good party in our back room. It was a fun time. So, one other item just to draw attention to today. Burnsville Library has been working for probably the past 5 years now with District 191 and their BEST program, which is their transition program for neurodiverse students. So these are youth who might struggle with finding jobs or employment in the community. We create an internship every summer where we typically bring a student on for about 9 weeks to give them the opportunity of actually going through the process of applying for a job, going through the interview process, being hired, being trained, having to fill out all of that government paperwork that all of the city staff here, at least I know, had to fill out when you started working for the city of Burnsville. And then going through a review process and then wrapping up with a party at the end of the internship. So the picture you see at the bottom here is most of my staff with 2 of our interns who were with us this previous year in 2023. But it's been great to work with these kids. In fact, one of the first individuals who came to us through the BEST program is now a permanent employee at the library. She works about 12 to 14 hours a week. Katie's spectacular. All right. In terms of what we have coming up this year ahead, we are starting our strategic planning process again. So some of you may hear from me or representatives from the library at some point down the road asking for insights or input about what direction you'd like to see the library take in the years ahead. Aside from that, we are just trying to keep up with all of the exciting things that are happening in the Burnsville community right now. We've been out this summer so far to Party on the Plaza. We did Pride. We were at Juneteenth. We've got a Somali festival coming up, and there's like 3 or 4 other things that I can't remember right off the top of my head, but we are planning to be there. So looking forward to remaining an active and contributing part of the community. And again, we're always looking to get insight and input from anybody, including our residents who might be watching from home. Mayor, council members, I stand for questions.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. You're a great partner. One of the things that I was curious about is that you have a lot of equipment so that our residents can access the website or do papers or make sure that they have some kind of help with facilitating, with filling out all of those forms. Last time you were here, you talked about how well those services are. All of the computers are usually taken. So are they still in high demand?
They are in demand. What we're seeing is kind of a transition, though. We have more people now who are bringing in their own devices to use at the library than who are using our computers inside the building. I think this just matches the general trend we would see in society right now, where people are carrying around a smartphone, sometimes a tablet, sometimes a laptop. Students that come in are typically charging at least 2 devices. We've got laptops or Chromebooks being charged while cell phones are also plugged in. One of the biggest needs that was identified recently at our library was we just don't have enough power outlets.
Oh,
So
okay.
of all the things you would think a library would need, power outlets is a big priority for us right now. This has also created some additional challenges for us in terms of our wireless network. We've had to beef up our wireless network to make sure that we've got a strong signal throughout the library and to make sure that it's robust enough to actually carry the data load that we see on it. In one part of our library, you can actually pick up the wireless signal from Starbucks across 42. So we do have occasionally, we will have customers that ask what the password is or the login information for Starbucks. Yeah.
Okay. No, because when I come, I always see that those 2 rooms are always full. And so it appears to me that it's still in high demand.
We still have a lot of people using the wired computers and machines that we have in the library. We also have 2 fax machines, and we actually had to add a second fax machine recently because there is still a huge demand for faxing of materials and services. Burnsville Library actually generates more revenue from our fax machines than any of the other libraries in Dakota County. And part of that is just the nature of, I think, of the residents who are filing paperwork that has to go to in most cases, to government agencies. And many government agencies, for good or for bad, are still requiring faxing as a principal transmission method for documentation.
Okay. Very good.
No
Any other
surprise,
questions?
it's kind of hard to find a place to fax a document unless
Yeah.
you have one at your office. Tax, accounting,
Yeah.
government, all require fax because it can't be
You can't
altered.
email them.
Right, you can't alter it, right? If you can scan it, that means you can open it with scanning software and alter it. So it's the one foolproof that is an old technology that will not go away unless there's a replacement for that. So I didn't know that you had fax services. That's good to know.
We do, yep.
Yeah.
And it's a big revenue generator.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not big, but it's-
Yeah.
Thank you for
Councilmember
this. I
Workman.
look forward to this presentation every year. I don't know how to say this without, so I utilize the mobile app in the audiobooks.
Yeah.
If I had one wish, it would be that I wouldn't have to wait for those audiobooks as long. You know, because if somebody else has them, and in my head, I'm looking at this going, well, how many copies of an audiobook are there? I would assume there would be unlimited, but my wife corrected me and said, well, they probably only have a subscription for X
Yeah.
amount per book. But I utilize that a lot, as does she, and so I appreciate that aspect of the mobile app. We use that at length at our house.
Good to hear.
so.
And if you haven't tried the new Hoopla product yet, HOOPLA, there are no waiting lists. So,
Is that integrated through the,
no, you'll have to download a separate app for that. You go through the login process with your library card number and account information. And then Hoopla does not have any waiting lists. If you find it, you can download it right away.
does that benefit the library system by using Hoopla then, or is that a third party?
It's a third-party piece of software.
Okay.
In fact, the other product that we use, which is called Libby, is also a third-party piece of software that we contract out with. But the difference is that Libby is cheaper. We can buy more materials for Libby. Libby has waiting lists. Hoopla is more expensive, but there's no waiting list.
Okay.
So
Well, you still get that traditional feel of waiting for a book, right? The anticipation.
there you go.
The anticipation kind of helps.
Bringing it back. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, are there any other comments?
I was just gonna say, I go to all these events, and it's always good to see you guys there. You guys have a nice presence in our city, and It's really appreciated by the residents, I know that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming in. Okay, the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience or watching us virtually to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda and not in application form that will be coming before us at a future date. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council? Mrs. Collins?
No one online, Mayor.
Thank you. We will move on. The next is additions to the final agenda, and this is for emergency items only. City Manager Lindberg.
Nothing from staff.
Okay, members of the council. Thank you. We will move on. The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on a consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone who wishes an item on a consent agenda to be removed for a separate discussion and vote? Mrs. Collins.
No one online, Madam Mayor.
City Manager Lindberg, does
Not
staff
from-
have anything to pull?
Not from staff, Mayor.
Members of the council, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda, please?
Move to approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. Thank you very much. We are now at the regular agenda, and the first item on the regular agenda is a public hearing, and it's about the Wellhead Protection Plan update. And presenting this evening is our Director of Public Works, Mr. Mark Ray, and then he's going to introduce our guest.
Exactly how
Mr. Ray.
it brains. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, the item before you is the Wellhead Protection Plan. It's a public hearing. Just as a reminder, there's no formal action needed other than holding the public hearing this evening. With that, I'll turn it over to Bo with Black and Veatch to go through the presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Excellent. Mayor and council,
It's on the-
great to be here tonight.
Yeah, it's-
We're going to be going through the Wellhead Protection Plan. Like Mark said, this is a public hearing. A little bit of background on the Wellhead Protection Plan. This plan is required by federal, state, and city regulations. Really, the basis of this is to protect your water source, specifically your groundwater sources for your wells. MDH is responsible for administering the program, and we're going through the process of adjusting a draft plan, receiving comments, and then addressing those plans. We will be back at a later date for the final approval once it's been through MDH, but really tonight just wanted to talk a little bit about the process and then hold the public hearing. So the background, Wellhead Protection Plan is split up into two parts. The first part establishes the area that you need to protect. And then the second part looks at what are the risks associated with that. So we do have a draft part one, or we have a final part one and a draft part two. So kind of looking through that, the part two is looking at the plan on how we're actually going to protect the area that we're pulling water from. It also, once we have that plan, it goes out for public comment, so we'll receive public comments tonight. It's also gone out to local government units, so all the surrounding cities, the counties, watershed districts, everybody else has had a chance to get those plans. We've collected those comments. We will address those comments as we make the final report. We already had a part one public meeting. A little bit of a lesser requirement for the public meeting versus the public hearing. But with that public meeting that was held in February 2023, we looked at the areas, the wellhead protection area and the drinking water supply management area boundaries, and received comments on those, and we did address those items. So up on the screen, this is your wellhead protection area. What those colors actually represent is the red lines, well, actually all those little dots are all your wells. The red line is the capture zone, the 1 year capture zone, which we look at a little bit different than the blue line, which is the 10-year capture zone. And the purple line that goes around, that is the drinking water, called the DWSMA, the drinking water management area. Thank you very much, Mark. The DWSMA here, this is your boundaries. Depending on what the soil looks like, we will go through and we'll look at the vulnerability. What's in red is the high vulnerability areas. We're going to look at the requirements for those properties a little bit different than the yellow property, which is medium, and the green property, which is a low vulnerability area. So ongoing activities, we're doing the vulnerability assessments, looking at what type of contaminants are in those zones. We want to continue to inspect properties and educate those property owners about where their properties are and what type of hazards they may have on their property. And all this information is available electronically in the data file across your organizations. So with that, turn it back over to Mark.
Yeah, we'll stand for any questions you have, Mayor, and then after that, we'll need you to open the public hearings with that.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Johnson or Mr. Ray? Okay, I will now open a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Mrs. Collins, anyone on Zoom?
No one, Madam Mayor.
Okay. We have no comments for the public hearing, and I will now close the public hearing. Thank you very much. Members of the council, there is no action to be taken. We only needed to hold the public hearing. And this is in regards to state statute. So thank you. We have done what we have asked to do. And thank you for also outlining for our residents where the vulnerability areas are, and so that they can have that. And I'm sure that that map is going to be on our website, so that if anyone has any questions, they can go there.
We will definitely check into that and confirm.
Thank you so much. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
thank you. The next item on the agenda is also a public hearing, and this is to approve on-sale intoxicating liquor and on-sale Sunday license for, is it Mi Causa Peruvian Restaurant, LLC, doing business as Mi Causa Restaurant and Bar, 14637 County Road 11, and it was the former Biblos location. Presenting this evening is our Deputy City Clerk, Mrs. Erica Henderson. Mrs. Henderson, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. So as the mayor had indicated, that this is for an on-sale intoxicating liquor license and an on-sale Sunday license for the Mi Causa Restaurant and Bar in the former location of Biblos. The Burnsville PD had conducted their background check and had found nothing to deny the application. License issuance is contingent upon the submittal of all required documents and the payment of the associated license fees. City code also does require public hearing for all new liquor licenses. I can stand for any questions.
Thank you. It's just nice to have another ethnic restaurant in town. We gotta
It is.
have, it is open, right?
No, from my understanding, it is not open yet.
It's not open yet. They're just getting their liquor license.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Members of the council, any questions for Mrs. Henderson? Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone? Mrs. Collins?
No one online, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Members of the council, your
Move to
pleasure.
approve?
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Mayor,
Aye.
we just make sure we close the public hearing. Did we close it?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
yeah.
I missed
Close the
it.
public hearing
Okay.
once Mrs. Collins said that there
Okay.
was nobody.
I missed that, sorry.
Yeah. And we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries.
Great.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Henderson. And now, the next item on the agenda is the review and also to accept the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Statement and Audit Report from our independent auditor and our Deputy City Manager, CFO, Jenny Rhodey, is going to be giving the introduction and introducing our guest.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. This item tonight is to review and accept the annual audit report for 2023. Our independent auditors, MMKR, have completed their work and issued their opinion, and Jackie Hugel from MMKR is here to present the audit results as well as some financial information as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Rhodey. And welcome back, Ms. Hugel.
Thank you
It's
very
always good to see you,
Yes,
and I think you bring good news.
I do. There is good news tonight. So good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I am here to present the audit results for the year ended December 31st, 2023. As we go through it, you'll see that there's very positive operating results throughout the current year. Just giving a little background, my role as an auditor is to issue an opinion on the basic financial statements over that city audit, as well as a schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So in the current year, the city did spend more than $750,000 in federal funding, and so that requires a separate audit of the federal awards. And in the current year, the program that was audited was the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. So those are those ARPA dollars that you're spending over a few years. As part of our audit, then we also review the internal controls and test compliance over that financial statement audit with that federal single audit and also with the Minnesota state laws and regulations. So each year, the Office of the State Auditor releases what's known as the Minnesota Legal Compliance Manual, and we test the specific statutes each year that they put out in that manual. For the audit results over that financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified or clean opinion on that basic financial statement. In the current year, the city was required to implement a new GASB standard. It's GASB statement number 96. It's a subscription-based standard. So as part of that, the city was required to review any subscription agreements that you have, and any that are considered long-term, which would be in excess of 1 year. You are now required to show a subscription asset and a liability, because you have the right to use that subscription over a set number of term, and you'll be paying that though annually, just like you have been paying your subscriptions in the past. But that is a new standard that was implemented this year that you'll have to be looking at every year, adding any new subscriptions into your financials. For our testing and review of the internal controls and compliance over that financial statement audit, all clean opinions there, no findings related with the internal controls, and no instances of non-compliance. For the audit results over that Minnesota Legal Compliance audit opinion, you're going to see there is one comment noted here relating with the audit and the approval of the disbursements, and just making sure that any disbursements in excess of $20,000 are being properly approved and following state statutes. During the current year, there was a separate agreed upon procedures presentation that was given, I believe, back in April that you're all aware of. So just making sure you're following through with that comment here. And then for the audit opinions over that single audit of federal awards, you're seeing all clean opinions there. A clean opinion on that schedule of expenditures of federal awards, as well as no internal control findings or compliance findings related to the grant that we audited. Moving on, the next several slides then are going to go through some of the financial results of the city, starting with this first slide, showing the governmental funds all combined together, the change from 2022 to 2023. The top portion of that slide is showing it by that classification of fund balance, and then the bottom portion shows it by the major funds of the city with all those non-major funds combined. So overall, when you're looking at all your governmental funds, you're seeing an increase of about $15.6 million from the prior year. You're seeing that restricted fund balance go up just about $2.5 million. Most of that was due to the one-time public safety aid received right at the end of December that is restricted for future public safety expenditures. The committed dollars, you're seeing increase there mainly in that facilities capital project fund. The assigned fund balance was up about $3.4 million. That's dollars that are just assigned for future parks capital improvements and some equipment and vehicles. And that leaves that unassigned fund balance increased about $6.5 million. And most of that is in the general fund with the improved financial performance this year. Then moving on to the general fund, the next several slides focuses just on that general fund. This first one shows some trend history on the general fund financial position, showing that cash balance, the fund balance, and the expenditures. Overall, the general fund cash and investment ended the year at about $36 million. Your fund balance at year end ended the year at about $34.5 million, which was an increase of about $7.5 million from the prior year. And then at year end, December 31st, that fund balance in the general fund as a percentage of the subsequent year's budgeted expenditures was at 60%, which is in line with the city's fund balance policy. This next slide here then summarizes the general fund revenue showing budget to actual. It does exclude any net change in the fair value of investments that's calculated each year. But overall, you're seeing your general fund revenues came in about 5.2 million over budget. Some of that is in the intergovernmental category, and that is due to the recognition of those coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. And that's just due to how it's budgeted. It's budgeted as a transfer in line item, but when it's reported in the financials, it's reported in the intergovernmental line. And then you saw your other revenues come in over budget, about 970,000. Most of that's just higher than anticipated investment earnings in the current year. Overall, when you look at your general fund revenues, you did see an increase from prior year of about 7 million. Most of that was in the taxes, directly related with the increase in the tax levy, as well as the intergovernmental. Most of that, once again, with that coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. Last year, the city spent about 2 million, and this year, 3 million. So an increase of about 1 million in that category. This next slide here shows similar graph just of the general fund expenditures. Overall, your general fund expenditures came in under budget about 1.7 million. Most of that is in that general government function. You're seeing about a $1.6 million budget variance. That was spread across various departments, but the largest department that had a variance was information technologies, and that was just due to some savings for hosted services and maintenance in the current year. And then overall, the general fund expenditures increased about 4 million. Most of that is in public safety with increased personnel costs, mainly in the police and the fire departments. Moving on then, we'll start talking through the discussion on those enterprise funds, the various utility funds, as well as the other enterprise operations the city has. Overall, when you look current year to prior year, the net position saw a decrease of about 1.4 million in the enterprise funds. Most of that, if you look at the bottom portion, you're going to see is in that water and sewer fund, and that correlates with the top portion of that table. It's all in that unrestricted net position. I'll briefly walk through the results of each of these enterprise funds, starting with the water and sewer fund. You can see the operations for the last 5 years here. Overall, ended the year with an operating loss of about 1.2 million. As we move through these graphs, you're going to see that purple line also is included on each of these to show what that income loss would be if you exclude any depreciation on your capital assets. But overall in this fund, you saw your operating revenues go up about 1 million. Most of that's just due to the approved rate increase as well as consumption increases in the current year. You also saw your operating expenses go up about 2 million. There was various repairs and maintenance projects going on in the current year. This next graph shows that stormwater utility fund. Overall, end of the year with a small operating income of about 5,000. Once again, you can exclude that depreciation, and operating income was about 1.5 million. You saw your operating revenues going up slightly, about 130,000. That was due to approved rate increase. And then your operating expenses also saw an increase in the current year with some repair and maintenance costs ongoing in 2023. This next graph shows that AIM Center fund. You're seeing there that the revenues in the 2023 year increased about 580,000. You're back to that pre-COVID level revenue stream there. Also saw your expenses going up about 280,000. Most of that is in contracted labor. But overall saw an operating loss before any contributions and transfers of about 190,000. When you back out that depreciation, saw operating income of about 380,000. Ice Arena is the next graph here. That shows operating revenues went up about 54,000 in the current year, just increased rentals in 23 compared to 22. You had a small decrease in your operating expenses, some savings and some utilities. Overall, ended the year with an operating loss of about 370,000. And then when you back out that depreciation, and operating income of about 50,000. I'll just quickly touch base on the last two here. The golf course fund had some positive results here, saw some increased revenue, about 30,000, a small increase in operating expenses. Ended the year pretty close with a break even, a slight loss of about $6,000 in the operating loss. And then the streetlight fund is the last utility fund. Saw increases in that operating revenue of about 16,000, and also had decreases in operating expenses. There was various repairs and maintenance projects in 2022, resulting in that dip in 22 and back up in 23. And then the last slide I have here, this summarizes the statement of net position. So this is the second reporting layer in your annual comprehensive financial report. We call it the government-wide financial statements, where it takes all your fund activity, all your business type activities, and it rolls it up into one snapshot. It's the full accrual financials, where it includes any capital asset activity on your financial statements, as well as any long-term liabilities such as pension obligations or OPEB obligations. So overall, when you look at this snapshot summary of net position, you're seeing an increase of about 13 million from the prior year. Most of that's shown in the top portion of the table, those governmental activities going up. You saw your net investment in capital assets increase. That's just due to the continued investment in utility infrastructure throughout the city. You saw your restricted category going up. Once again, that's due to dollars that are restricted for public safety with that one-time public safety aid. And then the unrestricted increase about 9 million from the prior year, and that's just due to positive operations throughout your governmental funds, including your general fund. So with that, I can open it up if there are any questions.
Questions for Ms. Hugo?
Good report.
Yeah. I want to thank our staff, first of all. City Manager Lindbergh and Deputy City Manager, CFO Jenny Brody, for the work that you all do each and every day to be good stewards of the public's money. So thank you very much, because when Ms. Hugo comes in and reviews everything and gives us this kind of report that is open and transparent to our residents and to our businesses, that they can see that we're being very good with regard to taking care of the public's money. So thank you so much. And to our staff, thank you for your good work. Members of the council, any thoughts, comments?
Outstanding work by staff. I mean,
Yes.
it's another great report.
I know. It's, so one of the things that our residents and businesses can be comfortable in knowing is that we're always open and transparent in the way that we present. We take care of their money and how we present it back to them. And that we do get a third party to do the audit. And then, of course, we still also have the state that also takes a look at everything. And then, of course, we also submit all of this to GFOA. So there are 3 entities, and that's what our public needs to know, our resident and our businesses. There are 3 entities that have eyes on everything that we do, so that we can say to our residents and to our business, we are being good stewards of your money. So thank you, Ms. Hugo. So members of the council, I need a motion to accept the auditor's report.
Move to accept.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the motion carries. Thank you so much, and thank you. Okay, members of the council, there are no other items to come before us this evening, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Good night, and thank you for being with us.